Welcome to Honestly Rated, and today we'll be talking about your favorite whale, Thumpback. Thumpback is a pretty popular giant that I'm surprised I haven't done yet. Anytime I see anybody talk about Skylander, specifically giants, I normally see people say that they really love Thumpback. And it makes sense, it's a giant whale with a fucking anchor, he's pretty cool looking, but is he good? That's the question we'll answer today by taking a look at his overall moveset and gameplay to really see if he was honestly ever any good. But before we jump into the gameplay, let me give you Thumpback's lore. Just like another water gimmick Skylander, Thumpback was someone that was a pirate, but his heart wasn't really in pirating. This time he was wanting to be a fisherman, which is kind of weird since he's like a fish, so I don't really know how that works. But nonetheless, a day did come where it would put him to his test. The legendary Leviathan Cloud Crab. This is something that's big and then Thumpback really wanted. And while Thumpback was trying to grab it, it snagged him away from his boat and then eventually just kinda lost tail. Thumpback became stranded and never saw his pirate crew ever again, but this did lead him to join the Skylanders, and I guess he just kinda stuck with it. So much for his fishing journey. Now with the lore out the way, let's go take a look at Thumpback and see how much of a splash he can really make. Starting off, we have the Anchor Assault and Belly Flop. Thumpback starts out pretty alright. With his Anchor Assault, he does pretty sizable damage. I think it's a little too little, especially since he's a giant, but it does make up for the fact that he can swing that bitch far. Now it does take a little bit to actually swing it, but there's a nice thing to it that when you get close to an enemy, he actually won't do the full swing. He'll actually do a faster version where he's just battering the enemy right in front of you, which is definitely very nice just because the long range version does take a bit of time for it to actually do the full swing. Then he also has a combo where he just spins around in the darkest lariat, just like my sweet boy Incineroar. It does nice damage, it does have a little bit of a wind up, but it's always guaranteed to just shove enemies, which is nice. Then we also have Belly Flop. Belly Flop allows him to belly flop and let him slide around like one of those backyard shitty water slides you'd have back when you were younger, or maybe even now. This one fully knocks back enemies and is just really nice to just kill a bunch of things real quickly. And realistically, in the beginning, there's not really a downside to Thumpback. Yeah, he's slow, yeah, he's big, but that just kind of comes with being a giant. Nothing's too overly slow. Now, the only thing I will say is that I think he just does a little too little damage. 38 damage for his primary is kind of outrageous in my opinion, since this guy is a hulking beast with a fucking anchor, while a stupid rat with some stupid club can do over 100. But this is a giant we're talking about, so there's probably going to be some damage upgrades near the tail end of this guy's kit. So let's keep it rolling. For our next two, we have the Whale of a Chomp and Slippery Belly. The Whale of our Chomp is our third move, and personally, it's practically just our belly flop. What it does is it allows us to chomp.
Was that the bite of 87?
Doing 53 damage. Now the reason I say it's the belly flop is because it does exactly what the belly flop does, but doesn't make you move. It knocks back enemies, it's pretty slow, and that's it. With our other upgrade, Slippery Belly, we get to do more damage and go further with our belly flop. The funny thing about it is that the damage increase made it do 53 damage. So they realistically are the same thing. Personally, I think belly flop is better than the chomp. Being stationary is a lot worse than moving around, especially when things are shooting at you. Also, another thing that I guess you can do is do a belly flop into a bite, causing you to carry an enemy really fucking far away. I swear to God, back in the day though, you would be able to eat like small things that would give you HP with the chomp, but I guess I was just hallucinating, or maybe that's a future upgrade. But for right now, there's realistically no reason to use the chomp, unless there's literally one single enemy that you want to bite. The last thing on this path is the Whaleless chomp, and now there's an anchor. For these last two, they are literally just damage upgrades, not really much to say here. The chomp officially does more than the belly flop, so I guess you can use it more often. Still, I think moving around is still more beneficial. Then Anchor does more damage. Still not the amount of damage I would like to see from a giant, but we're going places. Now we go on to the Anchors a yay. With our first upgrade, Thumpback combos. All the glorious combos where you either get some pretty good ones or some pretty ass ones. Most of the time they're ass, but sometimes they can be a delight treat. In the case of Thumpback, they're kind of mixed. The first one we'll talk about is the Power Whip. This is something in the beginning that I thought was pretty useless because it does less damage than our just normal combo, but when I got to using it more and more, I found a little bit more value than I did before. The reason being is that this combo is practically just our primary, but it does a lot more damage. It comes out pretty fast and it hits a really big margin of enemies. I would say even more than our Darkest Lariat. Now this one keeps you stationary, but it comes out pretty quickly. It does lose that 5 damage, but it's something where if there's an enemy in front of you, you could whip this out to hit him and then jump away. But that doesn't really go with the other combo, the Whirlpool Ripper. This move is pretty cool and it's pretty good. It's just the fact that getting it off in normal play is just really not in the table. The reason being is that this is an extremely slow move for multiple reasons. Obviously, to start a combo, you have to do 2 primary attacks, and if you're doing the long range version, Thumpback takes a while. Then to get this move off, it takes even longer, like ridiculously long. The other sad fact about this move too is that it's not really something that's very practical. The reason being is that the way the move works is that you hook the ground and then you make a big whirlpool down there. Any enemies that go in it will get trapped and they can't move. Now, unless that enemy is like extremely far away, they're probably not gonna get hit by this. And with him not getting hit, it just kind of sits there and no enemy is realistically gonna go in it. It doesn't do a lot of damage, and even in Thumpback's case, there's not really a big use to it. It's something you have to kind of pull off before you go into a fight from far away, or something you just set up on the ground and then just hope to God somebody gets in it. Other than that though, it's just really not that great of a combo. Then for the last two on this path, we have the Bermuda Triangle and the Ultimate Anchor. The Bermuda Triangle just makes it so our Whirlpool does more damage, which is, I guess, cool. Instead of it doing 9, it does 13 per tick. But again, it's not that practical of a move, so I don't really care. If it made it faster, then we would be talking. Then for our Ultimate Anchor, we get to do more damage with our primary and every single other combo. Now I can officially say that this is actually doing a pretty good amount of damage for a giant. 51 damage, sweeping through multiple enemies is pretty cool, but in return, we get some pretty mediocre combos. Other than Power Sweep and our Darkest Lariat, it really is just the Whirlpool Ripper that I complain about. Now we're on the up close and personal path, where we have Breakfast in Bed and Armor of the Sea. Breakfast in Bed is honestly one of my favorite upgrades you can get for Thumpback. This allows you to belly slide and chomp at practically the same time. Anytime you do a belly slide, if you press triangle, you'll be able to chomp your enemies and pretty much combo them to death. Now the damage isn't major, it does like 37, but the fact is that anytime you do a chomp, you bring the enemy back down to you. Sometimes this leads you to do another hit with your belly slide, but it's more the fact that you can kind of just chain this over and over and over again if the enemy doesn't fall off the map, and they really can't do anything about it. And since you're always constantly moving, you really can't be hit anywhere unless you stop right next to a couple enemies. It's a pretty good move that's also pretty fun. Then we also have Armor Resilience, which just gives us more defensive capabilities. Even though we're a giant and have a really big large health pool, we're also a giant. So that means we get hit a lot, and he's a melee character. So you know, I'll take it. Then the last thing on this path is gonna be Bad Sushi. Going back to our chomp, anytime we hold triangle, we can now vomit out water. This water does 19 damage at a very rapid pace. You can't really turn too well during it, but if you aim it at the right spot, you can do a lot of damage pretty quickly. Now it's not a very practical move, isn't something that you're gonna be doing all the time, but it's definitely a funny move. And another move that I thought was actually the Soul Gem. Not a bad move. There's not a lot of points I would say you would want to use it just because other things do a lot more damage, especially since Thumpback is a character that can hit pretty much anything. It is a pretty funny move, and it is a move that I like to use at time to time. Then for our last move, we have Blowhard. Blowhard, just like our chomp, anytime we do a dive and press square, we can now shoot water out our spout. This spout is really big, so it hits a lot of enemies, and also does pretty solid damage at 60. If you go with the top path, this is just nice just to have a move with your dive, but if you go with the bottom path, there's a chance you can do a chomp and into a Blowhard. This will allow you to get pretty big damage off, but overall, there's really not much to say. It's a nice move to just attack a lot of enemies that are kind of close together. I don't think it gives you enough time though to pull off any like specific combo moves. Maybe ones that have like a whirlpool in it, but you can definitely pull off other combos like the Power Swing or your Darkest Lariat. The other property it has too is that since it's coming out of your spout, it launches enemies upwards instead of sideways. So using this at your tail end of the move is nice just because they'll be right next to you for you to start swinging at, or chomp, or whatever you really want to do. And if they're too far, they'll get launched up anyways. So honestly, it's a pretty great Soul Gem. Now with the Soul Gem out of the way, we have finished everything for Thumpback to talk about. Now it's time for me to give you my honest rating of him. Personally, I think Thumpback's a pretty fun character. His anchor move is fun, his diving's pretty fun. I think Chomp is still something that could have been diversified a little bit more. Again, it's practically just the standstill version of your dive. But I definitely like the partner moves that it did come with the bottom path. I think if they just had Water Spout as the third move, I think that would have been a way better one. Or Water Vomit, I should say. And then having upgrades towards that. I think the Whirlwind one should have just been a little bit faster. Again, it's just not really that practical to pull off anywhere. It also isn't a move that you do often. If it was faster, you could definitely pull it off a lot more and combo with other things, but sadly that's just not the case. Overall though, I did like Thumpback, and I think he's a pretty fun character, and most of the moves I did enjoy, and most of the upgrades I also did enjoy, so I'm gonna give him a solid 4 out of 5. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Honestly Rated. Let me know what you think about Thumpback in the comments below, and if you want to see some more Honestly Rated in the future, these come out every single Saturday, but subscribing would help me out the most and make sure you never miss one. I post other things than Skylander content, so if you want to go check that out, you can, and if you just want to watch more Honestly Rated, I have a big playlist with every single Skylander I've done so far, and it should be on your screen now if you want to watch any more. Again, let me know who you want to see next, and I hope to see you and everybody else in the next one. Peace.